Uh, can you hear me? I I can't hear your sound.
How about now? So that was me. That was me.
Yes.
Okay, boom. All right. So welcome to Piper Carter Podcast. I'm your host, Piper Carter. Yeah, I have my illustrious guest, Jesse Dearwater. Welcome, Jesse. How are you?
Uh, I'm I'm very fair this evening. Thank you.
Okay. So I think what I want to do is I want to jump right into the topic first. So for people who are just getting to the video, I want them to know what we're talking about, and then we'll go back and talk more about you and your work. But Biden has offered or given the state of Michigan, I think it's an offer for a loan for $1.5 billion to reopen the previously closed Fermi 2 plant, nuclear plant, right?
Palisades.
Oh, Palisades.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the Palisades reactor. Yes.
Okay, so he wants to open up the Palisades reactor. So there's 1.5 bill on the table. Um yeah, so I wanted to play the Gil Scott Heron song, We Almost Lost Detroit, because if I'm not mistaken, he, made that song is about, almost losing Detroit, but I didn't want to get a channel strike, so I don't have I don't have the song, but because I want people to be able to hear this information. But you guys can go look up the song yourselves and listen to it. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into that subject matter to let people know, what are the facts of that you're aware of, and like what is it that we need to know about that?
All right. So originally, well, the plant has a long history of issues like faults and failures. There's something called embrittlement that happens like to like the structural metals that like kind of keep it stable and cause it to like start to crack and like fall apart like literally. And Palisades is like the fourth worst embrittled reactor in the country, and it has lots of other like issues that are going on with it. So the owner, First Energy, uh, all right. So the previous owners, so the previous owner was no longer making money on it and had deferred fixes on it for like a long time. And so like the amount of money that it was costing to maintain the plant and the amount of money that it was building up that needed for the fixes began to accumulate too much. And so it was a done deal for them. So no other energy company would buy the reactor because of its condition and the problems and the issues and everything that come along with it. And so they sold it to a company for decommissioning, which is like when they begin to break down the reactor, clean up the site, get rid of all the radioactive materials and stuff on site, which is a whole nother issue. But so they sold it to Holtec, which is the company, and there was quite a bit of fuss in the state of Holtec taking it over because they have like some shady business practices in other states and lawsuits against them and some tax problems. So the AG Dana Nessel kind of like took on the issue too to make sure that they would decommission it properly. And that's kind of where we saw it be for like about a year.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it at that process, and then all this like build
Was it Build Back Better?
Yeah, Build Back Better stuff
Mm-hmm.
started kind of going on, and then some of that went through, and so a bunch of federal money came up for grabs. And along the way, while this was happening, the company Holtec, who had claimed they bought it for decommissioning, was and still is going along with decommissioning plans. Like they literally just presented there in that township last month about the decommissioning plan, and so like. In one way, they still plan on decommissioning, but I guess they were kind of like enticed by some of this money, plus the state eyeballing nuclear more, and so they applied for the loan to get the money for Palisades. It didn't go through at first because you need a nuclear operator as the energy company in order to like they have to have some kind of nuclear operating experience as an energy company in order to like own a reactor, and Holtec doesn't have that. And so the license was like denied. So like I can imagine a lot of energy and effort and people and taxpayers' money went into eventually a lobbying campaign, closed doors or out in the open, I don't know, to where the state all of a sudden came forth and said they would put $150 million towards getting this plant re-upped or whatever it is. And then Wolverine Power came through. They're kind of like up more towards northern Michigan. They actually have have a small modular reactor, micro reactor running up in mid Michigan, which is where that flooding happened. It got flooded like last year, and there were some issues with that. So though they have a small modular reactor and they don't have a giant reactor, they still technically have nuclear operating experience. Plus they did some programs for the government. So they have these other ties too. But so then this third party came in, who is the power company that said that they would purchase the power and do the overall type stuff for it. And so then after being denied like 2 times or 1 time, I think in their application, Holtec submits a new application with this new information saying Michigan's willing to throw some money in on it, and this other power company is willing to be the handler, and they'll just facilitate the site. And so we don't really know where it's at right now. There are like multiple like lawsuits and appeals against the company Holtec. Some here in Michigan that have to do with the Palisades decommissioning and the prevention of the reopening of Palisades. So I guess the news is that they might be getting this $1.6 billion to fix, which is, I forget what the estimate was for just to reopen it. But with the deferred fixes, there's another estimate looming around that it's going to be more like $3 billion. Of course, the folks pushing these things, they don't include those in the different deals all the time. So, but yeah, so Michigan will throw down $150 million on it. The government could potentially come off $1.6 billion. They're calling this, they would call the name for this would be the zombie reactor, because never in the history of any nuclear anything has the core and the fuel from it been removed from a plant and it be attempted to be, and fuel attempted to be put back in, and a plant be attempted to start back up and run again. So does that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good, thank you. That's a lot actually. I mean, you were like, "Oh, I don't really know that much," but you just gave us like way more than any of us know. I think before we go into who you are, I wanted to show somebody that maybe people know, maybe they don't know. This was the previous uh leader of the free world, if you will. Oh no, where did my I think I accidentally erased it. Ah, shoot, I had my thing queued up. They didn't want him talking, that's why. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to re-queue it up um while we do this, but so I talked to Jesse, our illustrious guest, and I, asked him, if he would be willing to come on and, kind of share with us some of the work that he's been doing around nuclear. And so we'd been trying to um you know uh connect and do something for a while, and it just was pretty busy. And so I think this happened, and I don't know, either you contacted me or I contacted you, but either way it goes, I'm glad that we both were able to do this. And so there's a film that I want to show, just a little piece of it. I had it, all queued up, and I'm queuing it up now. Here it is. Boom. All right. So this piece of the film that I want to show, it's a longer film. I think it's like 12 minutes. Ronald Reagan did it. It was in like 1962, and basically it was the consumers energy, um and possibly other corporations that I'm not sure if he named or unnamed, but in general, he's trying to sell us on the idea that it's good, that no, okay, on a few ideas. One, that nuclear he's trying to sell us on the idea that nuclear is good. He's trying to sell us on the idea that like a privately owned energy company is a good thing. And he's also trying to sell us on the idea that all of this is like completely safe and is what the direction in which we should be going in the future. I think it's possibly paid for and funded through several corporate entities. Obviously, one of them being Consumers Energy because it's their kind of commercial. What's n- inferred, and I'm trying to think implied, but not necessarily explicitly said, there's some government involvement there, but it's unclear through this particular video. But we're not going to watch those parts. The parts that we're going to watch is just there's also, I also want to name that I'm truncating the piece that I show, and I think in here he's selling us on somewhere between 4 or 5 different reactors, but the reactor that I want to show here now is the one, the Fermi 1 that was here, because I want us to talk about the Fermi 2. So anyway, I know that was a lot and it's all around the bin, but we're going somewhere. So I'm going to share my screen. First of all, thanks for being patient, and I think it's this one, this Ronald Reagan. So first, can you see that? Yeah. No? Oh, there. Okay, I have to add it. Good. Okay, boom. All right, now you can see that, right? Yeah. Okay, boom. Okay. And now I'm going to push play.
A utility company. Right here in Michigan, we have the Enrico Fermi atomic power plant near Monroe. Consumers Power Company is associated with this reactor project, which is connected to Detroit Edison generating facilities. And the Commonwealth Edison Company's Dresden Power Station near Chicago has been on the line since 1960, producing, of course, the same kind of electricity that a conventional power plant produces. Which brings us to an important point. There's nothing mysterious about an atomic power plant. Basically, we're just using a new heat source. The standard fuels used in the production of electric power have been coal, oil, and natural gas. In the atomic power plant, we're using a fourth heat source, atomic fission. Atomic fuel has two advantages. It isn't consumed rapidly like other fuels, and it's very compact. For instance, the heat output of 1 pound of uranium can equal the heat output of 70 tons of coal. In the Big Rock Point nuclear plant.
Okay, so then he goes into the Big Rock nuclear plant. So, but in what he said, I wanted to get your reaction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, he talks about the Fermi 1 power plant, which is, you were talking about the Gil Scott-Heron song, "We Almost Lost Detroit." That plant had a partial meltdown over 50 years ago, which is what sparked that song and the book, "We Almost Lost Detroit." So, like, my initial reaction is here they are trying to sell us on new or quote unquote new reactors, small modular types, the future next gen reactors. Whenever, like in this video back in the day, they're like talking about like how great this one little reactor is in Detroit, the Fermi 1. And so I'm just watched, like, I don't know, just watched the case for nuclear destroy itself before my eyes. But my other reaction is that when he holds up the little thing and he says, "This 1 pound of uranium, you know what I mean, is like 100 times this, that, and the other, burns 100 times hotter." And it's like, well, yeah, it's also 100 times, more than 100 times more dangerous. If he was holding like a real thing of uranium right there, man's would have been toast, you know what I mean? And he probably wouldn't have finished that skit right there, as where
Okay, wait, first of all, thanks for pointing that out. Because he was definitely holding like a block, like a children's block. He was not holding like actual uranium. So thanks for, because that right there was like,
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild, and like how they how it's like framed like that. This one little block, you know what I mean, burns more than this, that, and the other. Well, it's not even one. They don't just like fit. They don't, they don't just take a little block and then fit it into a little block uranium and fit it into a reactor and it goes off. I mean, technically, they take a bunch of metal bundles of converted uranium and they kind of fit it into things that fit like that, but it's not a block. And so, like, just saying that kind of kind of like insinuates that it's safe, you can hold it, which we know better than that now. Two, that it's just this little block that goes into a reactor and makes it happen. That totally takes away the whole, like we're like 90% of the radioactive leftovers happen and pollution happens. You have uranium mining. You have over 15,000 uranium mines that are uncleaned and contaminated on Turtle Island. You have processing plants, fabrication places to where, like, and enrichment centers to where, like, they get it, then they clean it and extract it and get the uranium, then they enrich it, then they figure out what they're going to do with it. Are they going to turn it into bombs? They can turn it into fuel. What kind of fuel are they going to turn it into? Higher enriched fuel, lower enriched fuel, whatever. And then they fabricate it into these fuel bundles, which are like metal, and all these are done at separate locations. You know, they call it the fuel chain or whatever. And so at every single one of those places, you have radiation left behind. You have toxic facilities, Superfund sites. So I mean, that's my initial reaction, is that's how they get us with these
I want to show a little more.
propagandas.
Yeah, I want to show a little more because, like, man, I hate to show this whole video. So maybe we could watch and stop because through what you're saying, they go through and talk about all these points. So, yeah, maybe I'm gonna show like a little. I'm gonna like show a little bit more and then stop and show a little more and stop because that's very valuable. What you're adding. The in here they talk about how they make the fuel, I think, in California, then they got to get it here, and then there's like multiple reactors. So anyway, I just want to show this a little more because it basically reinforces what you're saying. So I'm sharing my screen and gotta add it. Am I adding it? Gotta add it to the screen. There we go. And all right, here we go.
The heat produced by uranium fission is used to turn water to steam. The steam is passed through a steam drum to remove excess moisture. The resulting dry steam goes on to the turbine, where it spins the turbine blades. The turbine drives the generator, and electricity flows to the transformers and the distribution network. Once the steam has done its job in the turbine, it's turned back to water in a condenser. The water is pumped back to the reactor to be turned into steam again. Every furnace has to be regulated, and the atomic furnace is no exception. You regulate the heat output with control rods. As they are moved down and away from the fuel core, the fission process produces more heat. Inserting the control rods all the way shuts the furnace off completely. Remove the rods, it starts up again. Before we can get our furnace going, we've got to get it into place, and then...
So I'm gonna stop like right there, and I want to get your reaction to that, what we just saw.
Yeah, so it's like well, a couple of things. One is you've seen that it's basically boiling water, which you can do with a fire underneath. You know what I mean? All this different stuff. Coal does, gas, and it's like it just seems like a lot of energy and effort and destruction of the earth and pollution and different things like that from my perspective and a lot of other impacted communities' perspectives and experience that it's I kind of lost my train of thought because I was wanting to touch on a second thing. Oh yeah, it just seems like a lot of destruction, energy, and effort to just boil some water. But like I think that was like a closed cycle reactor, and here at Fermi 2 down there in Frenchtown Township, Monroe County, that's a plant that takes water in from the lake. I mean, it takes water in from Swan Creek and Lake Erie, uses it in its cycle, and then puts it back out into Swan Creek and Lake Erie. It uses 45 million gallons of water a day. It treats and dilutes a bunch of toxins and makes like 4.5 million gallons of waste a day that come in it. That's like a 10-to-1 ratio. And so our plant is not like that kind there. It's actually putting the wastewater out. Like they have to have a separate permit called the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, which is what any facility that discharges pollution into waterways has to have. And so that's kind of like what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the plant that openly pollutes. They have a permit to pollute. And also it releases tritium into the water. That's even listed on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's their website is, reactors have regular and routine releases of radioactive byproducts from the nuclear fission process, like tritium. I think there's like 190 total that happen whenever you do the reaction in the core. And some of them stay trapped, some of them turn into the gas and liquid and come up out. But the majority of what's coming out in the steam, which comes back down up to like 180 miles north by east of us, and what goes out into the waterways via the pollution discharge elimination system permit is tritium. And tritium is well known to have health impacts. And so that I mean, I'm sure that was just a simple thing to try to help people understand, how nuclear power is attached to the grid and how it works to produce energy for the grid. Maybe that's what that was aimed at, but yeah, I just feel like that it didn't do a very good job of talking about the whole of impacts that nuclear power generation has.
Yeah, because they want to sell us on it, right? And you can't sell. I mean, you can sell poison to people, but then you dress it up. I'm gonna show like a little bit more because it gets it's actually funny, but it's not funny, yeah, it's actually really disgusting. Okay, I'm gonna show a little more. And again, the reason I want to show this one is because I want to show another one, but I also want to show how long they've been trying to sell us on this. Right? This is 1962. Think about that's a long time. That's a long time. Anyway, yeah. So
Fueling. Early in 1962, the reactor vessel arrives at the plant site from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Working in bitterly cold weather, men and machines nudge the vessel into the sphere, inch by inch and foot by foot. After 4 days, the vessel is raised to its upright position. It took 2 years to build. Any damage now would jeopardize the entire plant schedule. Slowly, the vessel is lowered into its nest of steel, concrete, and huge pipes. Finally, it's in place. No time is lost in outfitting the furnace with its hardware. Underneath, the control rod drive equipment is added. Quarters are cramped. Inside the furnace, men install the grids that will guide the fuel bundles into place and keep them in proper alignment. Clean white work clothes are worn to help keep the interior of the vessel spotless. Cloth caps and shoe covers are also worn. Every night, the opening of the vessel is covered with plastic film to keep out dirt and dust. Check-in time in the morning. Every day sees more and more technicians, fewer and fewer construction workers. The furnace is just about ready for the fuel. 2,400 miles away, the fuel is ready for the furnace. At the San Jose, California plant of General Electric, fuel bundles for the big Rock Point plant are brought out of storage. Each bundle contains 144 tubes filled with small pellets of uranium oxide.
So I'm gonna stop right there. Okay, I want to get your reaction to that.
Oh man, I have a lot of reaction to that. I mean, just like tracking the Fermi files and like there was a lot of sensitive equipment that was like damaged like before it was installed, and like I don't know if it's DTE or the inspectors or whatever, but they like found ways to like say, oh yeah, this is good, and then like 20 years later they're having to put some kind of fix on it or something like that. And I'm like the investor owned utility is always trying to cut corners and save money so that they can give returns on their investors. And and then it's really I don't know, they really painted up like it's all good. And in my mind, like whenever I see the fuel bundles getting ready to go in there, and I think about the fuel, I kind of flash to Palisades reopening. One of the numbers I do remember from the estimated cost of it to reopen was the $250 million that it's going to cost to get new fuel for it. And that fuel will only be so good until they have to like these plants every 18 to 24 months go down for what they call refueling, where they have to take out the fuel that's in there and then put new fuel in because this fuel is overheated and it's no good no more. And 250 million every year and a half. And there's nothing they can do with that fuel either. Whenever it comes out, they set it in a fuel pond, a spent fuel pond, which like the Fermi, the last time we intervened in a case, had to do with Fermi's spent fuel pond. It was only originally designed to hold so many spent fuel rods because it's only supposed to operate for so long. And so that's the way that they're built. But like Fermi's has moved past like the amount of fuel that spent fuel pond holds or will hold. And so like they're having to like reconfigure it and overpack it. Yeah, I just see like maybe it's because I'm in the weeds on this stuff, you know what I mean? And that's why my reaction is so much like this. But yeah, they really hype it up. I mean, any big job is exciting whenever you're getting ready to finish it, I guess, so I get that. But next clip.
Yeah, I guess I was looking at it because I was looking at the fuel rods, and I was like just thinking about, so the Fermi one, the one we're actually looking at, just for people to think about this. This is the one that did it explode, or what happened to it?
Yeah, so the Fermi 1 plant, it was like they call it a partial meltdown. Let's see here. Let me try to see if I can find the thing. Yeah, I guess that let's see here. Like suppose like it overheated. There's a few different things that people point towards. One engineer points towards the type of reactor that it is, which is like this like closed looped sodium cooled fast breeding reactor, which uses like these salts as like a cooling thing. And he just says that this design there's like too much friction or something like that, and that the salt overheats and explodes. While there's another finding, like some sort of like finding that they found some kind of like pop or beer can or something like that inside the core from whenever they were like putting it together. And that's what caused it. Something like some magnetic thing or some swirl caused that thing to like be pulled up in there and get lodged or something like that. And that's what caused the
Basically
meltdown.
That kind of makes me think, like, how would beer, like the fact that they say it was a beer can or something, or a soda, is like they're trying to blame the worker, I suppose, but not the fact that we shouldn't have atomic power.
Yeah, or that these technologies are not safe. Like I even just now went to like Googled the thing or whatever it is, the Fermi one, to try to see if what the analysis was. But even on that, it says that it says that it suffered for a partial meltdown for reasons that were not completely understood.
Right, like that. I mean, what about that? Maybe we shouldn't have had atomic power.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not reason, is it?
Yeah, or experimental. I mean that too. I mean, just in general, but like I don't know. It's a mess.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
we will uh I sometimes when I say mental gymnastics to that we will do in order to justify technology or certain ideas of American or societal or civilization progress. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to find the good words for it.
Capitalism.
Yeah, capitalism. We really want to buy into that shit because
Yeah.
it's lifted us. It's lifted us and our ancestors out of the savagery that we were in. Sorry, this is all. I shouldn't even talk like
Well,
that.
let's
But
go there.
that's
Well, let's do this. Let's talk about our ancestors, right? And let's take a pause here and honor our ancestors, right?
yeah. I
And
should have hit my
so
nose.
yeah, talk to us about, yourself and the work you do and and your ancestors,
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I'm from Oklahoma. I come from an impacted community. I actually come from a place where there's a super fun site that used to be a uranium processing plant, which is kind of how I was introduced to this in my childhood. Uh, 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 I'm a Cherokee, Katua, Ani Gaduagi is what we would call ourselves. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. And to go even further than that, I would go even further to say that, how I was raised within the community and my affiliation with it and the lessons that I came from there with and I live with in life, is even further to say that I'm not just a federally recognized tribal member, but I'm also a community member. And I feel like that I was given the opportunity to experience the integral part of my people's culture that that you don't read about, that doesn't have to do with tribal affiliation, has to do more with the spiritual aspects of it and the old ways. And so I'm really fortunate in that sense to have that kind of lineage. And I also have this lineage of Cherokee people who organized and fought quite literally. One of my ancestors was a war chief, chief deer in the water, hence my last name, was a war chief who, probably seen a lot of horrible stuff in his time, and all my ancestors did, but every single one of them fought to protect the land, protect our people and our life ways. We're intertwined with the land, and that carried through, even though of all the nuanced history of the Trail of Tears and the Cherokee people and our affiliations, both with, for, and against the United States government. All that aside, we were able to keep a lot alive there in Oklahoma. Sometimes I feel like I'm like a living ancestor, no. But yeah, we were able to keep a lot alive there, and in a tight knit community. And so how I was introduced to this was there was a uranium processing plant in our community that pretty much, just employed local Indians and poor working white class people, I mean, not white class, poor white working class people. And, but it seemed like that only the Indians were doing these jobs, the Cherokees, the Creeks, the Katuas, the Seminoles, and whatever other tribal folks were working there. Were being exposed. And so my mom had kind of been working against nuclear stuff and working with native communities and just against the nuclear abolitionists already. And so some folks kind of started going to her, local people, and being like, hey, there's some shady stuff happening here. Like we're dumping stuff. We're seeing kind of glowy yellow stuff. We think that they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. What's-McCallum's been getting sick lately. He's got this cough. So then they started getting involved, and it was the classic thing, where it was like Indians or natives or people of color or people of culture, as I like to say, we're literally giving our experience, our lived experience, saying, hey, something's not right here. We're being exposed to stuff. People are getting sick, this, that, the other. But then the burden of proof, like legal documentation, like all this stuff kind of like fell onto us. And, it's just like the classic story of like, the group was called Native Americans for a Clean Environment. It was just like the classic story of like the industry people and the government saying, you all don't know what you're talking about. And if there is some sort of legal thing that we're doing wrong, it's up to you to prove it. You know what I mean? Your stories of people getting sick, your stories of seeing trucks going into fields and dumping stuff late at night, the 9-legged frogs, the 3-headed cows in these fields, the glowing yellow boots, that's not proof that they're doing anything wrong. So like they fought, you know what I mean? And all the things they intervened on, they like didn't win any of them, but all those things would eventually lead to the closure of the plant once like the Cherokee Nation got involved in it and like some other bigger government folks got involved in it. It led to that. And some of the things that carry me through this, I mean, it's now a super fun site. Most of the people that worked there and handled the stuff are like gone now, you know what I mean? Dead. And it's a super fun site. My family was targeted for our activism, from my mom's activism, targeted by everything from like, the good old boys to like the agencies and the industry folks that like we worked against. Like I got some, pretty stories from when I was a kid, but I won't go into that. But yeah, so it's like, but part of that standing up was, of course we want to protect the land and the water, but we also want to protect our people and our health. And we're tired of the overarching power structure of the United States government and its capitalist cronies, you know what I mean, using us for American progress, while at the same time telling us that we don't know what we're talking about and our lived experiences don't matter, and the and I'm not the only native, you know what I mean, that experience this. Most of the people who do the anti-nuclear work are indigenous people. You just don't see their faces because we're silenced by, the overarching, white supremacist power structure, capitalism we live under. You see who's most adjacent to it. You see who's closest to the proximity of it, and that's their people, you know what I mean, who make livings off of nonprofits, have nonprofits that make tons of money off of our community struggles. So, I'd also like to dispel the narrative that the industry and the climate people put out, that it's just concern, that it's just crazy activists from nonprofits or whatever it is who who are against nuclear for whatever reasons. No, most of the people that are fighting nuclear on the ground and internationally are people of color whose communities are directly impacted, whether it be mining, whether it be bombs, whether it be weapons facilities, enrichment, all those different things I talked about. Yes. So it's like, the fight against nuclear is an environmental justice issue. I mean, it's a climate justice issue. It's a fucking white supremacy issue. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss. Sorry. It's a anti-fascist, it's an anti-colonial issue, it's an anti-capitalist issue. The American progress is built on the backs in the lands and resources and in dead Indians, you know what I mean, and stolen African bodies who were brought here for slavery, and that progress looked like nuclear colonialism, to where they forcibly removed Indians from their lands and put them on other lands. And then once they found the minerals on those lands, then they moved some of them out and then wouldn't allow them to live there. There's nuclear colonialism is something that your folks should research and look up and learn about. So then they move us around, and then the ones who didn't have to move, still communities got polluted by the uranium and the processing and all these different things. And these folks live with it, like that area of the Four Corners of New Mexico, Arizona, where the Navajo Nation is. That's literally considered a sacrifice zone because the betterment of oil and gas and minerals and uranium and coal is for the United States and our progress and how to drive America to be the global leader and the global power to go off and impress other places and drop bombs on them and mine their uranium and mine their minerals. America is built, the American dream, the greatness, all of it, you know what I mean, is built on the sacrificing. It's not just built, but built on the sacrifice and suffering and current issues in Indian country.
Yeah, man. You said a word, Jesse. That's what they say. You said a word. I appreciate you, and thanks for, kind of going in depth about, yourself and where you come from, why you do this work, your people, and all of that. And we were looking at the Ronald Reagan piece, right, which was like 1962, and it was, I guess a commercial, to try to sell people on nuclear. And so I want to come up to this modern piece, and I want to ask forgiveness before I show it, because the guy is really annoying, and he is making a joke. But I chose this piece because he's got like several points, and I'll try not to make the points go too long. But I want to go through this modern piece because this piece is only from a year ago. And it's again very similar, like a commercial pretty much to try to sell us on nuclear. And it's from the perspective of the corporations, right? And they at this point, they understand like our talking points. They understand, they've seen the movement, right? They've resisted against, like you've said, the ways in which like your family has been there for, decades on the front lines, fighting against this. And so they've learned, right, like how to frame the narrative and how to shape the story so that it is more malleable and acceptable for the mainstream, because they know that people have, we've been through COVID, right? So everything was revealed, right? Like during COVID. So more people got into the movement. We had the George Floyd moment, right? Even going back, people have been consistently questioning our reality since like 9/11 per se, right? In modern history. So there's just been this escalation. And so it looks like these corporations now, especially after George Floyd, are really learning the language that they need in order to really draw in, right, the mainstream. So I want to show this video because it's got all the things. The Reagan video had like the music bed under it, and at the time, Ronald Reagan was just an actor, like he wasn't a political figure, so to speak. And so think of it as like, their celebrity of the time doing like this commercial, right, for nuclear. This guy isn't by any standards a Ronald Reagan or any of that, but he is charismatic. He is kind of goofy, and he does have some sort of, I guess, appeal, right, to a certain demographic. And I think the way in which he is, what's the word I'm trying to say, sarcastic, is it the sarcasm is done in a way that it's and the language used is a little bit confusing as to that you would really have to be paying attention to understand that he's actually supported by the corporation, because what it sounds like is that um he's just a regular person that kind of, doesn't know much about this, that, talked to some quote unquote experts, and this is what he found. So he's trying to present himself as like neutral, not an expert, but like, listen to me. I don't know. It's like really weird. So I'm going to play a little bit, and oh, sorry. I'm going to get the share the screen. And then after that, we'll go to the wait, is this the one I want to play? Oh my god, I put too many windows up. I wonder, is this the one I want to see? I think I want to share this one. Is that the one I want to share? No. Am I sharing? Do you see my mouse moving around? No. I put too many windows up. I'm trying to see. Okay. Which one is this one? Oh, no, not there. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. I'm working on it. I want to stop sharing. Which one is the one I want to share? It's this thing here is so hard to tell because it just tells you the name of the window. It doesn't tell you like which window. I wonder is, let me see if that goes backwards. Let me see, is this it? Sorry about that. I'm trying to see which one is this one. Let's see. No. Is it this one? No. This one? No. This one? No. This one? No. Or is it this one? It's that one. Okay. All right. So I want to share that one. And thanks for being patient with me. Okay, boom. And we add it to the screen. Here we go. Add to the screen. All right, boom. Here we go. All right, y'all. Thanks for being patient. I'll close it so I don't get as confused. All right. So I'm gonna play a little bit and then I want to get your reaction to this. Okay.
So we begin. What is nuclear waste? Nuclear waste, or radioactive waste more generally, is any waste that emits alpha, beta, or gamma radiation. It can be anything from spent nuclear fuel rods down to the gloves that nuclear engineers wear, and it comes from nuclear medicine, nuclear power production, and the reprocessing of nuclear weapons, as well as rare earth mining. To date, almost 500,000 tons of nuclear waste has been generated, though a third of that has been recycled. Instead of going to a dump or some large single area, because of public skepticism, nuclear waste is almost always either stored where it is generated on site, in pools of water, or in so-called dry casks above the ground, which we'll get to.
Okay, boom. All right, so I stopped sharing there for a minute. So I wanna, well, first I'm gonna see okay. So I know there was some there, and it's interesting because let's say like if a person doesn't know anything about this world of like, environmental justice, like you just go to work and you haven't been involved, you could stumble upon this video and like think like that the way the presentation, it seems as though they really care about mitigating waste, right?
Yeah, I would agree, and it reads and sounds like it's straight from the NRC website too. So it's like, you couldn't really say anything he said was wrong.
Right. So it's
Yeah, you know.
deceiving. My main point is it's very deceiving, right? So you
Yeah,
start
yeah.
it's very deceiving. Um I'm gonna go. I have a bunch of clips here that I saved, so I'm doing them one by one. So let
All
me
right.
yeah, but I just wanted to get your, I'm doing that. So I guess we started there. I think I just stop it? I think I just stopped it. And I think I'm gonna go to this one next.
All right.
Okay, boom. All right. Thanks for being patient with me, people. And while I'm here, I want to say peace to folks in the chat. I see Kipanga's here, Prostel's here, um, Andy is here. Ben Frank is here. So I want to say peace to people who are joining. Some of y'all are regulars, and some of y'all it's your first time. So appreciate you. And then anyone who's watching on the replay, appreciate you watching the replay. Let's see, is this it? I think this is it. I think it's hard to tell. Yeah. So I'm gonna share this one. And I'm just sharing clips, little clips for us to react to because there's so much that I want us to go a little slow like we're going now, okay? All right. So, here we go.
With thousands of tons of nuclear waste accumulating at sites all around the world, you may expect me now to start listing off all of the known environmental and health effects from nuclear waste. And that's what makes the public so skeptical, right? Well, I can't. Properly managed nuclear waste has no currently known widespread environmental or public health effects. This isn't barrels and barrels of glowing green goo just waiting to poison your river. No, this is reconstituted nuclear material in ceramic and glass and encased in many kilograms of concrete and steel forever.
Sounds like the world.
So, this is like and just so this is the way they got to do videos to like sell them to young people. But yeah, there was so much there, and help us out, Jesse.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's totally a mess. Like he said, no data found. And then go straight into when properly managed nuclear. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't know if like that was where, you know what I mean, that was the part where like, he got the industries where he got the industries like thing on or something, and they told him that maybe he could avoid some legal troubles by saying properly managed nuclear fuel. So for me, it sucks because more and more studies, are coming out like regularly about uranium and uranium exposure and exposure to the isotopes from fuel that's gone through a process, which are and so I mean I don't really know what to say about that, besides maybe point towards a few things. One, I could point towards the cancer study down in Monroe that like it's on radiation.org. I think it's the Physicians for Social Responsibility did it. And they've been doing these studies, epidemiology studies around reactor communities, and Fermi was one of them. I mean, it's not the direct tie to waste, but it's pointing towards exposure to the different radioactive isotopes there in communities. I would also I wanted to share, like I just shared it in this chat. I don't know if whatever, but it's where a tribe has recently flagged and are raising issue with because like how their communities are exposed to radiation. A lot of the pathways that they're of their exposures have been ignored by the NRC, like and so they're like trying to highlight some different stuff. I mean, I don't know what he's referencing there, because like there's been tons of health studies that talk about, like, you know, uranium mines and exposure to the different things. I think that maybe he's talking about like once it's stored in, because he kind of was creating a narrative there, right? He was like, it gets used, then it gets put in these casts that look like they were like giant, you know what I mean, giant things, and they're secure in there. So if like he's talking about like that, them being in the casks like that, even there's even data around that, around what potential exposure would be if a whole bunch of those casts were centralized into one location, which is one of the plans that the company Holtec has. So like, I mean, it just feels like it's a massive lie.
And that's my point.
Yeah, it just feels like it's a massive lie. It's like no data found. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much data. So yeah, it's a massive lie. Let's watch a little bit more. It's really crazy. So yeah, let's watch a little bit more.
Transform it.
Oh shoot, I accidentally went back. Hold on, sorry guys. So wait, after the no data found, oh here, right here. Right, okay, this is where I want to go. Right here. Okay, boom.
Out, or is just straight up ignoring, is that the non-nuclear waste we are producing right now, every second, is so much worse. It's literally killing us right now. Most of the world uses fossil fuels, right? Well, let's do the same comparisons that we just did on this program. How much fossil fuel waste is produced? Well, every year in the US alone, coal plants put more ash into the sky by weight than 300 times all of the nuclear waste ever produced in every single way ever. That happens every year. Do the math, and an average coal plant in the US will put more ash into the air and the atmosphere every hour than a single nuclear plant will in its entire lifetime. Where does all this fossil fuel waste go? Well, look around. The trees, the topsoil, the atmosphere, your lungs. How does it affect people? 1 in 5 deaths can be attributed to the burning of inefficient fuels like gasoline and coal. And finally, have there been any large-scale health and environmental effects from proper management of fossil fuel waste? Well, yeah. This hurts to look at because it's hurting the world. And yet,
so I'm gonna stop there. But it's so insidious because the presentation, like I said, the packaging is like as if we do care about the fossil fuel waste, and look at all the accidents and all the, you know, what's happened with fossil fuel waste, but nuclear is safe though, because like this isn't us. So I wanted to get your reaction to that.
So first things first, it's like a classic, like feels like a classic deflection thing, right? It's like, we're going to make this like 15 or 10-minute video about the nuclear waste problem and how we have it solved, but we're going to spend 8 minutes, or we're going to spend more than 3/4 of it talking about how nuclear is not as dangerous as all these other things. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out, is that it seems to do a lot of talking about like a lot of these other things when he came in to talk about the nuclear waste issue and how it's already solved, which there's a big hole in that. There's a big hole in that. So anyway, I'd like to touch on that. And can we go back in time? Can I get everyone to go back in time a little bit earlier when Reagan, neoliberal Reagan, was holding the little block and like it was 1 pound of uranium, and he talked about how like it was 100 times more efficient than the coal, and then I talked about how it's also like at least 100 times more dangerous and radioactive, and and the radiation from it will exist for like 200,000 years. Well, that's like the same thing that like would be applied here, is that they're using less of the uranium, so of course by weight, you know what I mean, and uranium doesn't really work like comes out of a smokestack and goes up in the air like coal ash does. They have to contain it, and they have to keep it in, and they have to keep as much as possible from reaching our lungs and our earth, because we will all die and everything will become mutated. You know what I mean? Like you literally can't have uranium dust flying out of a reactor. It's not safe or healthy. But don't get me wrong, there's some uranium dust flying out of some of those processing plants and things like that Indian people in communities and poor Black folks and poor white working class folks are exposed to in different places. I can get into that. So yeah, I mean, one guy I talk to pretty regularly, and also look towards for analysis, says that comparing coal to freaking uranium is like apples to alligators. You know what I mean? Like uranium is one of the most, like, once it's pulled from the earth and gets exposed to air and is then converted, and like the isotopes are created, the radioactive isotopes are created, that it's the most dangerous like substance on the planet. And so like to compare coal and uranium is kind of like is wild, is really wild. There's also like so it's just really wild that that they like to make the comparison with the coal. I mean, I understand that coal is bad. I'm pretty radical. I consider myself having a decent analysis on all the different technologies and energies and stuff like that, and the nuances and challenges that we would have moving forward to achieve that holistic balance of energies needed for whatever future these folks want. And I don't know. Comparing coal to nuclear is it's two separate things, like radioactivity, and even some people will try to say that like there's uranium in the coal and stuff like that too, and you could be exposed to that, and it's like there's elements of that in there, but there's probably elements of uranium in all the different things, and it's not processed, so these different isotopes haven't been created, and it's not turning into these byproducts that are like there's just lots of things that I've heard with the coal, like when they start talking about coal, it's like it's even classified different within their system. I mean, within the government system, you have the EPA, which regulates coal, gas, oil, pollution, all this stuff, all these legacy toxins and all this different stuff. And then you have the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, who handles radioactivity and things that have to do with nuclear. They got their own separate thing. So like whenever these folks try to tell you that it's the same or it's a comparable deal, the only thing that's you can compare is the violent, dangerous extraction processes, capitalism, colonialism, oppression, human rights issues. Those are the comparable things between nuclear and coal. And those are our comparisons. The government won't even acknowledge those things really. And so, I mean, I don't know if that covers that or not. And he also talked about how there was like no nuclear issues or something like that. Like he literally, I mean, like are you not going to even name Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island and Fukushima? I mean, like, those things are supposedly being properly handled, right? I mean, there's also uranium tailings there at the largest uranium spill to ever happen on the United States soil happened in Navajo country, Dene country, in the area of New Mexico, where a giant dam that was holding up a bunch of like radioactive uranium tailings, which is kind of like the leftovers, and not always the leftovers. It could go through another round to get used and get some more taken out of it. But anyway, this dam broke, and like millions of tons of fucking radioactive uranium, these tailings spilled into a local waterway and then spilled into a lot of other things. It's totally there. And like the fusion process, and then also the fabrication and enrichment, it releases and creates these isotopes on the molecular level that get out into space and time and keep on going like forever, basically. I mean, not forever, but up to 250,000 years, the half-life of some of this stuff, that we're dealing with when it comes to nuclear. It's just, I mean, it's an easy way out to compare nukes and coal if you're talking about carbon, but like most of the frontline communities I know, natives I know, people I know, it's more than carbon that's impacting us. It's pollution of our waterways. It's pollution of our of our food sources. It's if we grow our own food, it's acceptable to radioactive. It can be consumed by radioactivity. That shit builds up in us. We're exposed to it in many different ways. I mean, the only way I can compare coal and nuclear on any scale is the violent histories that they have with land extraction and displacing indigenous people across the globe and polluting their lands.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna play another. There's so much here. I'm gonna play another couple of parts. Let me go to this one, and it's like you said, it's so wild. The ways in which this is promoted. Let's go here. I'm gonna share this one, and I'm gonna add it to the screen. And is it this one here? Or is it this one here? Or is it this one? It's this one. Okay.
However, what they may not realize is that the vast majority, over 95% of all nuclear waste, has a short enough half-life that it can decay on site to the point of harmlessness in the lifetime of a power plant. Some longer-lived materials will have to be stored away forever, of course, but most of it will decay in the lifetime of a plant to inert rock and glass. At that point, standing next to one of these gargantuan nuclear coffins will literally be less harmful than taking a cross-country flight. Contrast this with fossil fuels again. Coal plants, for example, are the single largest source of mercury pollution on Earth, and neurotoxic metals like this will never, ever lose their toxicity, ever. They will always be a problem, and today they're not even contained.
Administrator, your request for the new Lamborghini.
So, okay.
That last part.
Yeah. So there again, they do the best they can in their narrative to give you the chart, and then it's color coded to try to explain to you how harmless nuclear is, except for the little red part that was at the bottom. Except, of course, the ones that never go away. But it can be contained and it's completely harmless. So, yeah.
So yeah, that chart there, very pretty important, you know. Some of that lower level stuff he's talking about were those like medical gloves and or clothes that people put on whenever they're working in the reactor, you know, pens and pencils that become radioactive because they spent too much time in the reactor with other stuff. That's that like lower level stuff that he's talking about, you know, that can decompose in like 100 years or something like that. It's all classified in different things. The red stuff he's talking about is the actual high level radioactive waste, the stuff that what's his name had in his hand, the big bundles that's going in and out. The main source of fear and worry, and rightfully so, because there's been lots of different studies and there's been some accidents. You know, there's one study that like if a spent fuel pond caught on fire in like New Jersey or something like that, it was done around a plant out there, that it would displace like 14 million people all the way up into like New York. You know what I mean? It would cost these billions and billions, probably, I think it was like 1 point something trillion dollars or something like that in economic dangers and different stuff like that. So like that stuff in the red, the stuff that he was like, except for the stuff that lasts a long time, you got to do something with that. That's the shit where that's the real stuff right there. That's what's in the reactor. That's what becomes very unstable. It becomes highly radioactive. And they're using these new fuels now. Our Fermi 2 down in Monroe has it in there. It's only one of like 3 plants using an experimental fuel that burns hotter and is enriched by uranium to a higher amount. And so that fuel, once it comes out of the reactor, like here in 2 months, Fermi 2 is going down for refueling. Once that fuel comes out and it goes into the spent fuel pond, it can't be moved for 50 years because that's how hot and unstable it is. So like we're kind of like locked into, even if they found a something to do with the fuel, the spent fuel, we're locked into that red fuel here on the Great Lakes for 50 years to come. You know, it won't even think about being moved. So like that's the thing there. And the deep geological repositories, you know, there's the Yucca Mountain is the one that was presented as like a good option back in the day. It was actually presented as such a good option, they forgot to consult with the state of Nevada and the tribes whose treaty land and ancestral homelands those are. They just pushed it straight up into Congress, got America all hyped up on a repository to store all the waste. And then the state of Nevada got involved. Then the Western Shoshone and I think the Ute tribe got involved. And first they were all pissed off, like, you guys didn't even get us to get our say on this first. Y'all just push this for the nation and put it in our backyards and make us bear the burden. And then they started doing the studies and hiring the scientists and the engineers and the geological people and this, that, and the other. And then come to find out that it's some sort of limestone bed or something like that, where that repository would have been. And that there's like these slow leaks of water, which would in return release high levels of radiation, since so many of those fuels. Because you also notice whenever he said in that video, he said something about a person, it will be safer to take a flight across the country than it would be to stand next to one of these things that he was standing, or that he had in the picture, or whatever it is. So like those things give off radiation because they're so hot, they can't have them sealed off and enclosed because it would like cause too much heat. So they have to vent it. And so they have to let air in to help cool. And they also have to let air out to help keep it cool. And so there's like radioactive gaseous stuff coming out of those at a time, depending on what kind of fuel it is, depending on what kind of cast it is, depending on if the cast was damaged or it's one of the ones that has a lawsuit against it because they're faulty. Depends on how much radiation you're going to get. But it's going to be a constant exposure to radiation wherever they put these fuel bundles at and wherever these fuels are stored at. So if they're stored underground somewhere, and say you have 100,000 tons, which is about how much United States has, 100,000 tons of this high-level radioactive waste, it's putting off a lot of radiation being vented. If you have 20 bundles, 20 of those cast in one location, there's a lot of radiation being vented, and that's nonstop 24/7. That's not just like one exposure, or, hey, I'm showing up today to work and I'm going to be in that area working near those cast, or, hey, I'm taking a boat trip across Lake Erie where the wind's blowing the radiation from those casts in the reactor. It's not like that. It's like, you know, I live in the area, I live off this land kind of too. I'm constantly exposed to these different levels of radiation. So if like they're just factoring how much exposure someone's being exposed to from the cast alone, then they give you that number. They tell you how much you're being exposed to from the radiation that's coming out of in the steam. That's that alone. Whenever they tell you how much radiation that they're putting out, it's usually just from the steam, and they tell you how much they're containing. They don't really talk about how much is going out in the water and how much is being vented from the spent fuel pond, pool, or those casks that he showed pictures of. So it's a lot of deception, man. They really, like, you know, I seen that the video there, one of the other YouTube videos that was up on that guy's channels. The government let me kiss nuclear waste or something like that. Like, Jesus Christ, man, you gotta go that far to prove it to us, or make it. It's like, look, it's cool. They let me kiss it.
Okay, I got 2 more clips that I want to show. I don't need to show both the clips. I'm just going to show one more clip, and then I want you to talk about, then I'm going to go back more to your work. So I'm going to share my screen here. And thanks, by the way, if you like the information that Jesse is sharing, and if you're interested in getting involved, Jesse, I put your website in the description, but just for folks who are listening, can you just give us all the ways in which people can get in touch with you to help you?
Yeah, so we got an email, shutdownfermi at Gmail. That's the way to email. We're also on the social medias. We got a Facebook page called Craft Citizens Resistance at Fermi 2. We got an Instagram, which is Craft Citizens Resistance. We also have a Facebook group. That's for the heart. That's where it goes down. I mean, that's where like the tons and tons of information and the conversations are going down. It's really hardcore. Stuff's posted pretty regularly. A lot of conversations. So yeah, those are ways you can reach out and see some of the stuff that we're sharing about the work we're doing, the overall, demystifying and debunking, which is a lot of it, plus uplifting, you know what I mean? The environmental justice issue of it. We're one of the only environmental justice anti-nuke orgs here in Michigan, you know what I mean? And there's not a whole bunch of them around that are kind of like Indigenous led or people of color led.
Yeah. So thank you. So this will be our last clip that we'll do, but then after this clip, I want you to talk more about your work. So
right.
yeah, because I'm sure folks have probably had enough of this guy. I know I have. Okay. So here we go.
When moving nuclear waste around?
That's a good question, Aria. I want to show you something. These are nuclear waste transport casks. These are what we use to put nuclear waste in and move it from site A to site B or what have you. Now, for all intents and purposes, these are indestructible. Like Hulk level, Infinity Gauntlet level indestructible. Watch this for a second. Yeah. You can throw a runaway train at one of these things and nothing happens. In the millions and millions of miles these things have traveled across the globe for decades, there have been 0 recorded accidents where one cracks open and stuff leaks out. There's nothing to leak. Remember, this is not green glowing goo. This is concrete and steel and glass and ceramic. And because of that, and because these things are so indestructible, it's very unlikely any of this is ever going to get weaponized like people are worried about. That's just not how these materials are going to work. What people should be worried about is something like a rogue piece of medical equipment somewhere, as unfortunately the entire city of Goiânia, Brazil, found out a few decades ago. When properly stored and managed, nuclear waste might in fact be the safest waste there is. And all of this is even without the ultimate solution for all of this.
Okay, so that's enough. Because that's a commercial for their little company.
Yeah, enough.
Come on, Jesse. They've convinced all of us, right? So now everyone, now this commercial has convinced everyone that nuclear is completely safe.
Yeah. So,
Jesse, this white man told you. This white man told you the truth, Jesse.
yeah. He was real hip and cool about it too.
Cares about you. This white man cares about you and your people, Jesse.
He explained it up real good. No, just the first thing, he was like, there's just no way these things are going to crack open and some goo is going to pour out. That's just not how these things work. First thing, and then he goes into say, and it's like, yeah, of course it's not just going to crack open and some goo is going to pour out. You said it yourself. That's not how it works. It's not a goo. It's fucking radiation, man. And, he showed some clips of some trains hitting it. I'm gonna say, what the fuck does that even mean? I'm sure they probably there were probably some industry videos that were sent to him, you know what I mean? But it's like, where's the, like a train hits it, well, where's the releases and the amount of release that's happening from the venting before the train hits it? What's it look like after? What does the 20 years down the line look like? Also, they talk that game, but at the same time, it's like kind of already been put out there that a fucking RPG could penetrate one of those mugs, man. So if like any white nationalist or any white supremacist ever wanted to this, it's this may sound far-fetched to me saying this off the cuff, but it's already, you can Google that shit. In the past few years, these white supremacists have made plans, and even like everything from like shooting at a freaking thing to like driving and parking in front of a plant or an energy source or like a grid connector with like explosives. You know what I mean? If a white supremacist, some people might say terrorist, but I say white supremacist. That's my biggest terrorist in my mind, is a white nationalist, or whatever it is, wanted to like cause some sort of disruption in like a majority like black city or like or a people of color or a Democrat ran city or something. They're crazy. They'll do whatever. All you gotta do is shoot an RPG at one of these mugs, and blow it up and penetrate it and cause and cause some disruption. So it's like, I don't know. It's a mess. He's talking about the transports too. He's talking about transport by train. He's talking about transport by boat. Is he talking about, transport by on highways? All these different things have been looked into and analyzed, like the International Joint Commission, which is kind of like it's not a governing body, but it's an advising body to the United States and Canada on the Great Lakes watershed. They held this big thing about decommissioning and transport of high level radioactive waste. And it's pretty clear, you know, in their report, and there was industry people and like activists, and there was engineers. There was everybody. I was in there with like a bunch of folks, you know, who I wouldn't even talk to in real life, probably, you know, and like the transport of high level radioactive waste is no joke. Like this guy just made this video like it was like as a joke. You know what I mean? Like he's not taking it seriously. He's like, you know, and that's that same, you know, to me, environmental justice and equality, you know, and things like that are like, let us be on our terms, you know what I mean? Like don't be ableist, don't shame people, don't make people feel like they're stupid, you know, and stuff like that. And that's what that whole video was for me, was this guy, this condescending, you know, probably cishet white dude, you know, freaking telling us how it is, you know what I mean? And we should believe him because the industry itself told him what to tell us. So if we don't believe him and we aren't swayed by his condescending remarks trying to make us feel stupid or ignorant or this, that, or the other, then the industry professionals themselves told him these things. So you should feel even dumber if you don't believe him now. So like, I mean, that's kind of the vibes that video, the whole thing puts off to me. And you know what? Whenever I'm out there in public and I'm in these spaces, to whether it's like an intervention, we're going head up against, you know, DTE or the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or I'm in some kind of public hearing with like state officials, or I'm in some kind of thing to where they bring together both opposing forces to try to figure something out. Whenever I'm, you know, whenever I'm in those, that's how them guys talk, man. They talk down on people. They talk to you like you're stupid. They talk to you like this. It's like gaslighting, you know what I mean? And like, that's a vibe in itself, you know what I mean? And it's like, if you got to gaslight me into believing you, or you got to gaslight me or shame me or make me feel stupid into believing what you have going on, like, I'm not going to go for it. I'm going to go find out on my own. And yeah.
Thank you, Jesse. I mean, you've spent some time, you know, kind of helping us dismantle a lot of the confusing ways in which nuclear is promoted to us. And then we've seen, you know, we showed a little historical footage to see how you know, they spent a lot of money. This corporation, Consumers Energy, spent a lot of money to get this actor, Ronald Reagan, who later became president, but at the time was a popular actor, to try to sell people on nuclear and saying this is the future and it's safe and all of that. And then we learned that one of the very reactors that they showed in that piece had a radioactive meltdown. And then now we see how nuclear is being sold as clean energy and green energy. And so before we go, I wanted you to talk about that. And also, too, I want to let folks know that I think I'm going to have to bring Jesse on many more times, and we have to do a whole series because there's so many points that we haven't gotten a chance to get to today. But before we go, can you help us understand, you know, why nuclear is not clean energy and why it's not green energy?
Yeah. First things first, you know, it's not clean at every step of the way. It produces some sort of pollution that stays behind, radioactivity especially. It's not clean at all. They got to mine it, you know what I mean? And then you have the plants here. We look down Fermi 2, and the water that it uses, and their national pollution discharge elimination system. Like, we just got a public hearing on opposing that thing. We're waiting to hear back from it on what's going on. But anytime anybody has an MPDES permit, you best believe that they're polluting, you know what I mean? And it's not clean. And so, like, basically it's one of those, like, what's the lesser two evil type of arguments, you know what I mean? But it's like, like what's evil, what's the perspective. If you were a settler on the American frontier back in the day, and your local people had been killing Indians and oppressing Indians, when the Indians come to knocking on your door wanting revenge or trying to hold you accountable, you know what I mean? The Indians are looking evil to you. And then if you are an Indian who is living here in peace, then all of a sudden here comes all these settlers destroying your land, destroying your people, your property, tricking you, this, that, and the other. They're going to be the evil ones. And so it's kind of like, how are we looking at this? I'm not saying that, somebody's evil here, this, that, and the people who are running things are evil. I mean, is that they're complicit in it, but so it's kind of like whenever someone begins to say nuclear is clean, like that's a lie off tops, you know what I mean? Like anytime you got to tear open the land just to mine this stuff and then do a whole bunch of other things, and it pollutes at every step of the way, and every community that it's landed in has been impacted by it. Like that's just not clean, and then you have the radioactive waste issue, which is the 200,000 year question, you know what I mean? Like, are we as humans and us as this form of society even going to be here in 200,000 years? You know what I mean? Like it's very easy to say, yeah, we can come up with this 50-year plan, this theoretical 50-year plan. But it's like, what about that 50,000 year plan? You know what I mean? Like what's up with that? And so it's not clean. You know what I mean? It's definitely not green. You know what I mean? Like, even none of it's definitely not green, like for the same reasons that you have to mine it, you have to destroy land to get it, and then you have to like go through all these processes to even get it turned into what you can use for the heat source to boil the water, and then you have the destruction of the land where the reactor will be, you know what I mean? Yeah, no, not at all. And then like all and then like people like down on some of the green technologies for like or they, one of the arguments against some green technologies in their forms and fashion is the rare earth minerals. Like you don't think that they're using that for all the complex computer mechanisms and pipes and metals in the reactors? They are. There's like a whole list of it, all of them. And then you have the amount of asphalt and metal that it takes to build all these plants at all these different places. Like the carbon footprint of nuclear, when you put it all together, is pretty fucking high, man. I mean, or it's up there. It's way up there, and so that's not green, man, and it's definitely not renewable. I mean, like it took the Earth, billions of years to develop that stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's not going. You know what I mean? Like it's not renewable. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't even know why I don't even know how and what basis that they use. In my work here in the state in the last 2 years, we've been engaging the state pretty freaking hard. Our group and coalitions of other environmental justice and environmental groups have been engaging the state pretty freaking hard on their carbon-free and renewable titles that they want to put on nuclear. First things first, it's not carbon-free. A simple Google search will tell you that carbon-14 comes out in the steam, though nowhere near comparable to coal. It's still that, that busts the carbon-free myth right there. And that if you look at the footprint of the transportation, the construction, the fabrication, the mining, and all these different things that go into getting the uranium to the plant to be used, and then what to do with the waste afterwards, the carbon footprint's pretty heavy. And so it's not green, it's not clean. it's not renewable. It's just basically like, you know, how we exposed ourselves sometimes by with our messages and our narratives and our language, because we put it out there because we want to share it with our people so that we're all speaking the same lingo. Well, these folks are watching the lingo we're speaking, and they're picking it up, and they're finding ways to develop it to fit their narratives, and it's working. It's definitely working. Just by the way they present it as clean and potentially renewable, like that's a trick. There's no renewable. There's no way to renew. There's nothing renewable about nuclear, even if they were to like maybe be talking about reprocessing. Reprocessing doesn't even work like that. Like you can't just take the reactor that existed once upon a time and all of its radioactive materials and then break all that down and throw it into another reactor and reprocess it and turn it to fuel. It just doesn't. It doesn't work like that. And even that's dangerous itself. And there's so many things that can't be reprocessed that end up going back into landfills, or going into storage areas that they have specifically for decommissioning and radioactive parts and stuff like that. It's greenwashing. Yeah.
That's what greenwashing is. That's the classic example of greenwashing. You use the green language to make it seem as though you are doing a very noble thing for the earth, when in fact you're just practicing extraction all over again. Jesse, I want to thank you for making the time to come here. I know you are a father, and you are invested in the movement, and you're committed to your community. And we've been in space over the years, more than a decade, doing protecting the Great Lakes. And so thank you for all your work, and your continued work. I want to know, as we land here, is there more that you would, or something that you didn't get to share here, that you want to share with folks?
Yeah. Just to also kind of like clarify, or to kind of set it straight, that it's like, the people that are like developing these videos, the nuclear power, the resource extraction in general, it's like they're looking at this like there's an infinite source of all this stuff, and if they can't get it here on Earth, then they'll go to space and colonize places and get it to keep it going. And that's that never-ending like expansion, technological growth, leaving the planet, colonizing space, all that different stuff. I mean, that whether or not that's the future that happens, that's not really the future I want. You know what I mean? I want to be safe here on Earth. I want the descendants, the next 7 generations, to have safe water, clean air, not have their genes altered by radioactivity. And so there's also a need for us to be consciously aware who's driving this vehicle. You know what I mean? If anyone's driving, is it a runaway car? You know what I mean? This growth, this expansion, this chasing the technology for answers. It's like, the answers inside of ourselves, and the answers inside of our communities, and we need. It's just that a better conscious awareness of just everything that's going on and things that are happening in our daily lives and things we subscribe to, ideas or contracts, social contracts we've signed, or whatever. Like we just really need to be more aware, and we need to start working a better relationship with each other, and trying to figure things out, because it's like there's just more and more of this like propaganda coming our way, more and more of this greenwashing, more and more ways that those overarching folks, the industry folks, the government folks will try to find ways to inject themselves and their ideas in the strongholds of our communities and our movements, and create more like division and stuff like that, yeah, and so it's just a sense of conscious awareness of how we is needed. And so I don't think that I really said that, but I feel like that's one of the important things, because I'm out here, I'm like rah against this, rah for this, but in the end, if we're not changing the systems that are in place and how these things are working and how we're impacted by them, then it's just going to be the same thing over and over, potentially even just get worse. I think muted.
That's me. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for spending the time. Thanks for the work you're doing. Thank you for making some time this evening to kind of help us learn and go through with us and help us demystify what's out there, the narratives, the history, the messaging, and help us to be able to support you in your work. Again, I want to point folks to the description of this video, because it has all the links. But as we end, I want to ask if you could just say again, where are all the places where people can connect with you.
All right. Yeah. So you can find us on Facebook, Craft Citizens Resistance at Fermi 2. You can find us on Instagram, Craft Citizens Resistance. We're on the Webernet, the interwebs. Hey, no. Our webpage is shutdownfermi.org. And I can be emailed or contacted at shutdownfermi@gmail.com too, for folks that, may want to take a deeper dive. I'm always up for friendly, spirited conversation, and stuff like that, or to be a resource or to help share resource. Cause I have access, we're kind of intergenerational work. I got connections to folks I wouldn't know, you know what I mean? And engineers and people who do these studies that I wouldn't know if my mom didn't do this before me.
Wow. And much gratitude to your mom.
Yeah.
For doing this work. It's not easy. If you enjoyed this conversation and you want to get involved in more environmental justice, or just, support our communities and the work we're doing, like, share, and subscribe this video, and let your folks know to tune in every Tuesday at 8 p.m. here on Piper Carter Podcast, on Detroit is Different. We're on YouTube, and we're on all the different ways that you can listen. And we have the website, which is pipercarterpodcast.com, detroitisdifferent.net, and all social media is Piper Carter Podcast, and all social media is Detroit is Different. So appreciate you for stopping by, Jesse, and appreciate everyone that stopped by to listen and chimed in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook.
Nice.
So you have a great rest of your week.
Yeah. Y'all,
all right.
Y'all too. Peace. Thanks for having